Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I have another instrument cluster repair, this time in a 2000 Audi TT 1.8 liters. This one was sent to me from Middlefield Foreign Auto in Ohio. The concern they have is, let me read the back of the car, coolant gauge issue and center screen pixelated. And yes, so let me um, well, first, I have it connected and we're going to do a sweep test. But thing that I immediately noticed, let me move this slide because it's kind of like in the way, making it too bright. With nothing connected, the temperature gauge is reading almost half a needle. That is not correct. So that is definitely part of their concern. So I'm going to turn the instrument cluster off and going to turn it back on so we can see the concerns on the center LCD, which is very common on these vehicles as far as the pixelated areas, and you have to replace the LCD, which is you have to be very careful. You have to take the entire board apart and remove the needles, remove the stepper motors, which are from 2000, so you have to be careful. It looks like we might gonna have to replace one of the stepper motors on the instrument cluster, but the rest seems to be working good. So yes, I want to record that yes, we have a definitely pixelated LCD. For the rest, this instrument cluster communicates on the K line. I have mark on the colored diagram, which is probably the easiest to work in here, the main signals we use. I also found the information and I mark on the back of the cluster since I don't have the car, which connector is A, B, and D. So let me just read this. So the green one is T32A, the gray right here is 32D, and then the blue one on the other side is T32. They have the pin numbers on the connector, so that is helpful. I found also the pin outs, which I have here. Let me get these ones here. Let me just 1 second, right here. All right, so these are the pinouts for the instrument cluster. It tells you all the numbers and everything, and I compare. And this is what I had, like the T32 is the blue, and we can see that in here. Also says, well, 32 pin green. It doesn't tell me which one is A, B, or D, but I also found that information, and I check all the pinouts. For my testing, grounds are shared except for the one on the pin 32 on the connector T32, again, the blue one. But 24, 9, and 7, they're all the same ground internally in the board, so I just provided one and the one in the 32. I have powers in pin 1, pin 23 on the connector, on the blue connector, and then I have powers on the green connector on pin 4, and K line on pin 28 going over to the DLC. Again, when I said DLC is the OBD connector, right? DLC connector. I have the um, oscilloscope also on the back end running to see if the communication was clean. It was. So right now, since I turned the cluster off, it's nothing in here. I also want to give myself in here commercial. If you need something to be tested or repair, please go over to my website, Mike Salazar Diagnostics, and Mike spells M-A-I-C and sounds as Mike. I'm from Costa Rica, so that's just the way my name is spelled, and that's it. So when you're here, you have two ways to contact me. This is the address of my business if you need to send a package. This in here, you see how I'm moving the arrow, the red arrow. When I hover over there, that is a click button. I'm probably going to put a click here, and then it will be more noticeable. But you can click in there. If I do this, this is all going to open your email on your computer like I just did, and it's going to send an email to myself, right? So in this case, I don't need to do that, right? You also have my telephone number in there, or you can click on the right side, the left chat button. And this is the best way to contact me so we can communicate and see exactly what you need to send to repair. I don't put lists of components that I can repair because it will be just a humongous website. I'd rather keep it simple. You contact me and we go from there. All right, so in here, let me go back to the actual scanner. I did a manual, or let me actually even go out so we can see this. So this is how I started. I'm going to put the oscilloscope on the back end so we will see communication on there. So I select Audi, click OK. This will open a generic page that will try to communicate in different protocols, or the scanner will try to communicate in different protocols to any Audi that version, right? Otherwise, you can do the manual select. Not many modules will talk because, as you can see, some Audis and Volkswagen, they will have a gateway. Like in this case, this one doesn't. This one, the instrument cluster goes straight to K line. So I select ID 17 in here as the instrument cluster and then enter there. When that is happening, when the scanner is trying to communicate, we will see shortly how the power or signal is changing voltages. You see it went up and down as the scanner is trying to communicate in different type of protocols. So right now it's just trying to establish a communication. When it finds the correct protocol, it will now we will see some buzz activity on the K line. So far right now it's just trying to talk, and now boom, now we have communication. So I found the right protocol. It says that this is the 17 instrument cluster, the part number, the description, the coding, which is very important, 06244. In case you need to replace, you need to put that coding in there. Okay, we go in here, we're going to select actuation tests. Very important, the engine is not running when you're doing this, just the ignition on if you're in the vehicle. And then this is doing a sweep on all the gauges, as we can see, and they will come back as we see very specifically 30 miles, sorry, 3000 RPM, 60 miles. The fuel gauge should be around half. The temperature should be around half, and as you can see, it's not returning to that. And then when I click next, which is pretty much ending the test, it will go down to minimum. So I'm going to actually take a picture because if they don't have a concern with the fuel level, I will understand it. Then this is just following with other tests. These are the dings and some other things. So I can go back. Let me get out of here and go over to actuation test again. I should have clicked 6. But yeah, you can see right there the whole pixel. This is now the entire segments. So this is the segment test, and we can definitely see the test of that center display now working properly. All right, so segments is finished. Now I'm doing another beep in here. Look like the actuation is now finished. So yes, I'm going to run one more time the actuation just to see the needles. I can see the fuel gauge moving slowly, goes all the way to full. I don't like too much the return on the fuel level. That again, if they don't have a concern, I will try to work on that. But definitely, the temperature is definitely not working correctly. Now it should return to 0, and it's not happening. All right, guys, so this is good enough. This is the first test to reproduce a customer concern. And then let me see what I see. Definitely, I think the LCD is going to have to be replaced and most likely uh, either refurbish those two or replace. So I'm going to have to open up and see what I see. I got the approval from the customer, obviously, to repair it. I have already fixed the fuel level gauge or temperature gauge. Sorry, I think it was the one that was giving the problem. I had to come back over to the first part to actually remember. But yeah, so It's been a couple of days. I had to get the screen because I didn't have it in stock. But yes, as you see, this is the old part. Very easy to remove, very hard to install if you don't have the correct equipment. You have to be very careful because this is a very intricate repair. You have completely to take apart the instrument cluster. You have to remove the stepper motors. They're looking like this. Let me get you in the light so you can see it better. But yeah, they are pass through. And they are like, let's say, these ones are in here, and the small ones like temperature and fuel gauge in here, and then a speedometer and tachometer on the bottom. But yeah, they are very easy to break. They're very expensive. Yeah, let's say, the speedometer and tachometer, there are close to 80 to $90 each, and that's cost. And then the temperature and fuel around $50 each cost. So again, you want to make sure that you are careful when you're doing, and if you don't know, I mean a repair, and if you don't know what you're doing, don't touch it. I do repair the cluster complete, and I want to show first before I completely put it together that the screen is now working properly. So let me power up. It is pretty easy. Hopefully, yeah, the camera is looking really good in there. And you can see now that everything is nice and complete. That will go over to the next, like fuel, temperature, and everything in a second. But we see, yeah, nice and no pixels missing, no nothing, which is, the concern that he was having. So all is good. Now I can put the cluster back together and then do the needle reset, because after you do this, you have to calibrate the needles again to normal readings. All right, so let me start the video. I'll be right back. All right, guys, I got the cluster all together. I set the needles pretty much to zero with ignition on, right? So there should all be around zero, but the test will be when we actually do the bidirectional control. So let's select Audi. So we got to go into European. I'm using the Phoenix Max from Top Done. Very happy with this scanner. It is a great bidirectional controls. A lot that you really will love with this scanners. It has some things that no other scanner offers, which is to save a sample when you're doing a test on the vehicle. You can save it, but the only thing that, I mean, I wish I can use more is because it's married to the bean, so you can save those files for a car, but not use it for another one with the same engine or the same year, because you can open it based on the bean number and compare it to the car, but it will not work for another one. So probably they eventually will change that to be the same, just year and model. But yeah, I have used it in my own car. I have saved multiple files for other customers, and it's really good. All right, let's go back into here. Right, we're going to go into Audi and Volkswagen, right? That's the software we're selecting. And we're going to go over to, this is going to open kind of like a multiple selection, because this right now doesn't even know what kind of vehicle you're working on, what we else in Audi. So we're going to go into instrument cluster 17. We're going to enter here. And this is going to allow us to go to bidirectional controls. This will show pretty much if you're using a Rostec or Autel for this year model, you will have to go into groups and other things for those that are familiar with Audi and Volkswagen. With this one, for the instrument cluster, all we're going to do is activation or actuation test, which is what you will use with even with the original tool. So it's trying to connect. Let's wait for that to happen. Has to go through multiple protocols again, because we're going without the entire vehicle, right? So we're going to go into group 3 actuation test. This is going to perform a whole test. So please confirm the ignition key is on. The engine is in a state of extinction. All right, so that means engine is off. Uh, all right, so we're going to click yes. And this is going to do the analog test all the way to full, and then it should be 60. should be 30, half and half. So fuel we will need to adjust just a little bit. So we have to, I'm not going to touch it the way it is. We need to adjust the tach. It's a little off. You can see here from the 30, the speedometer is perfectly marked and the temperature is on the perfect mark. One other thing that I want to show also for the customer, because he had a temperature gauge not working. So when I click next, all the needles will go to 0 and we can see that they're all working good. All right, so let me readjust the temperature, sorry, the fuel and the tachometer and redo this test. I'll be right back 1 second. All right, so I just move the needles a little bit. Again, we don't want to stress too much, and I'm not pushing, I haven't pushed the needles all the way in for the same reason, right? So I will also want to show you, because the first test that we did, it was the indicators. You see it's analog indicators. This will go to the entire process. If I click next, now it's going to do the next, which is cluster lamp test. It's finished. The next one, it will be the seat belt warning. We can hear that working. All right, so we're going to go into the gong, or that was already done. And it will go into segment tests, which, sorry, but it just did. So, and that is completed. So we can see all the tests it does. So actually, I was actually reading the one that was already done, but also I have to finish that because you cannot go back to the first one until you finish the actuation test. And this is the same is going to happen if you use the original um, software from Audi and Volkswagen. All right, so we click OK. We go again into number 3. It's going to ask all of that every single time. So we're going to see the movement of the gauges all the way to full, perfect, and then to the middle. All right, tachometer is now good. The fuel is still a little bit off, so we're gonna have to move that one, but the tachometer is now perfect. So I'm going to click on the next. That's going to release that, and it's going to look, I guess, a lamp test. I'm just going to keep you on the screen so you can see everything as it's happening. Some of the tests will not be completed here because we don't have the entire car, but you can hear the gong. That is the full segments on the screen. I wanted to show that because now we can see that that is brand new, right? So it should be all lit up. All right, so I'm just going to click quickly onto the next one, and we're done. All right, so let me move the fuel. You see the fuel has to go lower than that, obviously for empty and rest and reserve. So let me move that one a little more. All right, move it a little more. Hopefully you guys can see that. Okay, so let's go into, again, the actuation test. And let's see how that works this time. I went too fast and I pressed it twice because that is already finished. So let me, this is the problem when, like I was trying to go click next and I went to the entire thing. So let me, no matter what, I mean, you can just click next, 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 and at least in top down, because if you're using the original, it goes into like the whole process, you cannot stop it. All right, so let's go back here because all you do is enter and that is doing it. So you don't have to press nothing on the first one because it's already doing it. All right, so we can, okay, that's perfect. That is absolutely perfection. All right, so needles are calibrated and the cluster is working 100%. So when I click in here, they'll all go back to 0. All right, so this cluster is now calibrated perfectly and all is working good. So again, thank you so much, Middlefield Foreign Auto in Ohio, for sending me your business. Um, I know that you will love what I do because there is nobody in the entire United States that does what I do as far as showing everything before and after, giving the customer the confidence that everything is being done and that it's working like that. If this goes back to him, he sees everything working back, working here 100%. He knows that he has to check wiring, he has to check something else because the cluster is working fully. Same thing I try to do with all the repairs that I do to make sure that I give the confidence back to the customer and to a repair shop, dealers, because I work with multiple businesses and customers as well. All right, guys, thank you so much for visiting the channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye bye.